Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today I'm looking at the Operation Muharram al Haram, Middle East, the Iran-Iraq War. I suppose it should be set in Iran. It's one of those battles. I sort of think, well, I've actually got it in Iraq. I don't know why. Because a lot of these objectives are in Iraq. The whole idea was to regain some of the salients that were inside Iran. Well, that's how it describes it. Regain some of the Iranian territory and take out some of the Bayat fields and some industrial towns. It was a two-pronged assault, with one prong coming down here in the south, another one going here in the middle area. The north is sort of up there. One of the other objectives, before I do that, just sort of touch on that fact that it's in Iran. That's one of the reasons I've got this. If you are familiar with these, you can actually go in and look at the Iran-Iraq War, and whether it's in Iran or Iraq, you'll see them, as opposed to if you just select by Iran, for example. What you'll find is that it's only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whereas the Iran-Iraq War has 11, etc., etc. So it doesn't really make a great deal of difference, but well, I mean it does, but it's not that important. But if you're sort of more inclined to sort of look for things, that is the reason for the war setting. I mean, you could get a civil war and a national war, and these things might be two different things, and you would come up with them. So anyway, that's sort of what that is, just sort of an insight on there. We're going to have a look at this. So as I said, it was a sort of an attack to take out, sort of regain some lost Iranian territory and to gain some industrial sort of settlements but basically for bargaining later on. They wanted to take these. They didn't want necessarily to gain strategic ground. They wanted to take the oil fields and these industrial towns around here so that they could later use them as bargaining chips, because they would be within Iraq. So these are all these are in Iraq. All of these are in Iraq. This place here is just sort of where the battle happened. So it was near around Naft Shah, however you say that, over there. Musain village is in there because it's sort of, now I don't know where Musain is, but I don't know where a lot of these are. I don't know where Abu Qarab is and Abu Shirib. I don't really know where the Bayat fields. I know they're sort of more in the north, and I know these ones are more in the south. Amarah is correct. Mandali is correct. But Bied was mentioned as they came across the border, but it mentioned here again that they came towards the border, towards Musain, where the fighting sort of started, and whether or not Musain is there or there or there, I don't know. But one of the other things, because I've written the description up in the description of that, and maybe I could put this in writing actually, but what I was keen to sort of point out in the video was that one of the big objectives of what they were doing was to cut what's described as the Kut to Amarah road. So that's this road here. They wanted to cut that because it was a supply road down to between Baghdad and Basra, which I think is down here somewhere, sort of following down here. I mean, presumably they could supply sort of along here, but I mean, presumably logistics is such, they've got, this was actually, significant. I mean, they would have to use everything along here. Maybe this route was quicker, better for, more facilities for logistics or whatever, I don't know. More supply depots along this route, but I'm not saying that they couldn't have got there other ways, but it was such that was their objective, and the thing that I'm sort of trying to convey there to some extent is, with a lot of these scenarios, I just don't know a lot. I mean, I've got I've actually managed to get this new book, The Lessons on Modern War, Volume 2, The Iran-Iraq War, by Anthony Kordsman and Abraham Wagner. It's by Boulder and it's by Westview Press, Boulder in San Francisco. The reprint is 1991, but it's copyright 1990, and it's just got a little section. It starts at the bottom of page 154, finishes in midway, maybe 3/4 of the way down on 155, and it really doesn't mention a lot. I've got some other books, but I'm not with them at the moment. They're elsewhere. So, but the point is, it's you got to read the description, and it says I would have cut off the road between cut. And now it's easy to show the objectives by the red things. We know that Tib is an objective. We know that Amarah is an objective, but it's quite hard to actually put a road in as an objective. I have done it before, where I put actually a number of objective markers on the road, and I might do that. It's just because there's a lot of these, it would make it look just like another town or something. So I thought I'd just sort of put that in writing, and maybe I could put it in the description. I don't really want to play through the whole thing, but what sort of happens, let's get the drawing tool out again. What sort of happens is, as I said, there's these two sort of major pushes through here, one there, and it's a bit tight, but maybe I could have moved it over a hex, but I wanted to give some ground around here for the objectives, and I could have put it onto a big map, and to be quite honest, maybe I should have, but I did do this map once, and then it was wrong, so I had to sort of do it again. I didn't do the whole thing, I just put the border in, and it was, wasn't too much of a loss, but sometimes it's a bit of an odd angle. If I put the big one in, it would have meant all those extra hexes, and to be quite honest, it sort of seemed a bit of a waste. It's just a bit tight, so these are all sort of like up there with it, but you get this flush here that comes through there, so that's sort of what happens. And now the Iraqis are not prepared, so they come straight through and they don't have a lot of hassle. Now I don't know how balanced it is. It's not one of those small games where I can quickly play it and balance it out. I mean, I'm not going to play this all through. I just don't have time. I think it's one of the more attractive maps and setups. But what I'm trying to get to here is so they come through and they start fighting for all these objectives. Presumably this central line does or doesn't fall, but presumably they can cut this road sort of around here. So that might suffice for doing that. It's up to you really, but obviously the central lines are sort of possibly could be left there. Why go through all these hills? And the hills I think might extend a bit further out, sort of, but I haven't really looked too much at the geography. It's quite hard to look at the geography. There's no button on Google Maps for terrain. You can get an image, but there's no sort of like, I studied geography, and you'd have land use maps, and it would actually show certain things that were visibly, clear, as opposed to sort of, quite often you can say, well, is that sand dune or is that rugged mountain top? I mean, it's quite hard to tell on Google Maps. So it's quite hard to actually figure out exactly what the terrain is, and hence everything looks fairly basic, but I quite like it like that. But what I'm trying to get to here is you get these two assaults that come through, and then on turn 11, basically what happens is the Iraqis get a bit worried because basically they're not prepared and they're losing ground, and they muster up, I think it's two brigades, some Republican guards, and some tank units, some new T-72 I think tanks that had just gone in from Russia, and these will all come in from basically they're all coming from here, from turn 11. Between turn 11 and turn 16 you get a lot of stuff coming in, and so the theory is that maybe I should put some of them coming in from here actually, just to sort of maybe so you can go down and liberate that cut road, but they will then come in like this, and at the moment they all come in from there, so you'd have to sort of come down here. It only sort of suggests that they come in from here, but presumably you can then start shuffling things around. They're all motorised though, so that's nice. And most of this stuff is, you've got some motorised there, but most of this stuff is non-motorised. Most of it. We've got some motorised units, and you've got a smattering of mechanised units, etc. But anyway, so they come in through here on turn 11 and 12. Now again, that might be, you know, way too late, or it might be way too early, I don't know. But that should, I think, balance things out and then bring about the status quo. The end of the sort of battle came, I think, with a sort of a rainy period, and the year was getting on, and the sort of the assault sort of came to an end. I think it took place about a week or so. I don't know. You know, I tend to sort of pick these things out from just sort of a reference in the book. It says, you know, this battle, and then I found another reference, and then I run with it and I learn from it, and so I'm still on that sort of fairly early part of the learning curve. Obviously, I've read how long the battle takes, but I haven't made a note of it. But anyway, I'm going to just sort of maybe, I don't want to spend too long because this is going to take forever. But I want to sort of go through the mechanics of just sort of looking at what can possibly be done. I mean, basically, the way I see it is to sort of find a gap here, or find a spot here, and then just really break through on it. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, the road comes down here and down here. It's one of the little things about this. The road's sort of there, but you sort of think, well, why bother? You know, we can come down here. I really want to make it so that the roads are more important, but that's just something else. In actual fact, breaking through might be best there, because they're not in hills. And they've got 3. So what can we do? So I think the thing to do is to sort of figure out battle groups. We've got, that is just a stack of artillery, so that's really going to have to stay there. I'm also thinking about putting stacking limitations in as well, not for any logical reason, but more for a gaming sort of perspective. Okay, so we've got some mechanised close up, and here, yeah, I have a tendency to do things like this. I just put everything everything in one hex. Maybe I should go back and sort of draw them out a bit. So that is obviously the attacking hex. So we've got, should have about 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah. Because I wrote 20 here. 20. 10 is a regiment, I'm sort of guessing. It would have really been about 12 or 14, but I don't want to put too many units on. There's these games that end up with so many units that you're always moving stuff. So there's this sort of main battle group with its armoured support, its mechanised support, and its artillery. So once you start looking at it and thinking about it, it suddenly becomes a little clearer that that is a little battle group. These are the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Let's see, I don't know. So they're sort of on their own. I mean, they're not on their own, but I mean they're sort of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. I actually did look them up. Let me have a look. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, yeah, I got it right. It's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So that's them there, IRGC, with some Basra support. So they were actually operating with the Basra support, and you've got some down here. Well, we shouldn't really connect them all up because we've got more down here, and I think there's some sort of further down there. So let's just sort of. So I mean, the thing is, I've I've been watching, I keep saying this every time, I've been watching quite a few of these sort of videos. I've sort of watched them fairly regularly. I watched them all through because they're quite disappointing in many cases, but the point I'm trying to get to is, what I want to avoid is just sort of saying, oh, you're sending everything to the front, and I don't think that you do this. We've got a battle group there. We could, and then it's up to us to sort of say, well, what else have we got? Well, let's just say that this is another battle group. I mean, you know, we could have corps designation, but we've got sort of a bit of that. So we've got the Islamic Republic Guard Corps with the Basra support as specified, with some mechanised units, and we could send those down this road. And we could say, well, this is what we're trying to do, and these ones will go down this road. And this block here can be used to form a front there, because we don't really want to take that. This here could be used to beat through this hex, because this is a hill hex, so we could say go through there. And here we could choose almost any one hex, but we could maybe choose the whole front. I mean, it's sort of set up almost for an immediate assault. But now the thing is, what I don't want to do necessarily is just spend the first turn just sending what I can to the front, and then and then attacking. What I would rather do is sort of like try to figure out, you know, what I've got and what the odds are, and maybe putting them into position. So, for example, one thing that we sort of do know, let's leave that on because it's maybe useful. One thing we do know is that this stack, we've got a lot in there, but they can only move sort of 3. So there's no way they can get to the front line. 1, 2, 3. So in the first move for this unit, we could then say, okay, well, what I want to do is to move these as near as I can to a striking position, so maybe move them into Islamabad Ihab there, and prepare, so the next turn then I can move there, or there, but we're probably going to move into these 2 hexes to take that. But I can also then use this turn, and that will protect my artillery because it's a bit exposed at the moment. I mean, this really probably not the positions they might have been in. And we can move these into, say, a better position, and these also nearer. Now they could probably get in this turn. They could probably move 1, 2, 3. But as I said, I don't really want to be sort of working in that sort of reactionary fashion. So I want to be sort of spreading these out. So what I'm going to focus on in this turn, in this video, is just moving this little what I call battle group here. And I have seen, I was reading a book on career actually. They describe these as battle groups, or army groups, or groups. But they actually create a group, and I think it's the way to think about these things. And seeing these things, people are talking about, you know, strategic or tactical or operational or all sorts of ways of describing things. And I just don't think like that, you know. But I think this is to some extent the essence of strategy, and I've always considered that I like strategy. But this is sort of the essence of strategy. You know, being able to sort of organise, as opposed to, say, a tactical thing would be, well, if I've got a tactical thing might be to sort of maybe, you know, to attack here, to get that hex, so that when I attack here I've got 3 hexes, giving me, you know, another 10% bonus. I mean, you know, that's really not a good example, but that would be a sort of more tactical, that would be what I consider to be a tactical thing, as sort of like a very localised thing. Well, this is sort of more grand, but setting these things up, you know, I mean, the thing is, you might want to organise your groups differently. For example, I'm quite rushed here, and it's more convenient to form a circle, but you might want to actually put these Basra with these units. So let's just have a look here at the drawing tool, which is my favourite part of this game. You know, I might want to put my battle group like that, for example, or I might say, no, I want my battle group like this, and you would then there's no reason for this, but you might have this as your battle group with this. Now they would be attached because you want to use these mechanized units over here. So you've reorganized your battle group, and then this battle group, which would include those Basra and, well, for the sake of argument, these units would include those, but you might push these down here to this battle group. And so what I'm saying is you could organise things so that they're not just sort of so comfortably attached. And these armoured things, armoured units, now this is just an example because it probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. You might attach to, you might say, well, I'm going to attach them all the way down to this group, and that's not even considering, you know, what you might do down here. So what I'm saying is, you know, you might want to think about how you do these things. And this is the point I'm sort of trying to get to here, is that I could have sort of designated the units. Now it says there are Islamic Republican Guards and Basra and the Amarah, which are the normal units. But I haven't bothered to sort of put in corps designations. I mean, there's nothing here on the Iraqi side because it's not mentioned, and I don't want to sort of start saying, well, this is the first corps, this is the second corps. You know, they had a lot of units, and to be honest, I can never get my head around it. Just plonk in lots of units. It's representative. But I'm going to use the sort of the battle group that I mentioned, and because I don't really want to sort of do a lot of faffing around, but I think the first thing to do is to move some of these units across. So that's sort of as far forward as I want to get at the moment. So with that in mind, what else can I do? Well, I can spread forward like that. And just for the hell of it, I'm going to move one of these mechanized units there. Now what I want to do first, I'm going to target that hex. Now maybe this will give it away, but let's see what we can do. Okay, that's good. So he's at 2.45, 2.7. So those are sort of the sort of depression levels that will add up. Okay, so that's our artillery all used up in preparation to an assault on that hex. Now they had it describes it as 2 regiments of attack helicopters. So I put 3 units for each one. So now everything else is sort of, now this attack did go in first, so it would be fair to commit all our helicopters into there. Okay, 0.5, well that's better than nothing. They've got air defence, so another 0.5, 0.4, 0.2, 1.5. It was aborted, but at least it wasn't shot down. Attack helicopters are quite sensitive. 0.45, still did some damage. So we've now done quite a lot of damage against that hex. And the reason I'm sort of doing this video and just quite happy with this first part is to sort of demonstrate that level of thinking. It's also because I see these games and they just play everyone against everyone, and it sort of seems, well, you know, that's not even how they really did it. I mean, you'll attack on a broader front, but a lot of it will be a feinting attack. When we're putting pressure here, I mean, obviously they can't leave that empty, but our attack is going to go through one break point, and that's what we're sort of, you know, aiming for and sort of building up to. Now, obviously they'll be able to sort of maybe do something, because I'm trying to think more strategically, but he's 5.5. 2.9 and 0.2. I'm actually going to have to cut it short. I've got something. I've just noticed I've only got 9 minutes before something happens. So I want to move some infantry there, but I don't think you can move to. Now, a lot of what I'm sort of inferring here also touches to some extent on organisational logistics, or organisational competence, so to speak, or organisational capability. And what I mean by that, is just terms I'm making up, is that it might have been quite hard for, you know, to sort of manoeuvre and operate the Islamic Republican Guard, you know, at the same time, or intermingling with them. So I'm leaving these sort of separately behind. Now, the first thing that these sort of will go through, not so much in the Basra are more famous for the human waves, but they're going to be going through and attacking. And depending on what happens, I mean, then they will come in and give support, or come through and try and consolidate. And I'm hoping I'll be able to break through there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my units into Karamasha in preparation for that. But I'm deliberately keeping them away from this group. I mean, they're adjacent, but I'm not mixing them up. You know, because that's sort of how I want to play. But I'm going to wait. Well, he went that way along the roads, and he's still got 3 movement left. If I go this way, I've still got 3. So it's pretty pointless doing that. Now I'm keeping them in 2 stacks again, because I just don't want. One of the things about this game, I think, what you could do in theory, you could move everything around in 1 stack, and it would be to some extent unbeatable, because no one would be able to get any odds against it, and it would be able to defeat everything that it hit. And that's one of the reasons I want to put stacking limits in, sort of stop that sort of gameplay. Not that I've ever done it or seen anyone do it, but I just sort of think that it makes sense to sort of try to encourage players to think without, you know, stacking like that, you know, having some sort of stacking limitation. But the thing I don't like about stacking limitations is that they're not as intuitive. I mean, one of the things I like about this game, and it's never going to be perfect, is that someone could just sort of pick it up and start moving the counters around and start playing it without sort of saying, well, hang on, something's not working. In particular, being in command, you know, there's just nothing more frustrating than not being in command, and nothing more frustrating than being out of supply and not knowing, you know, having to move everything and so that you're in supply. I mean, I saw a game, and it was, you know, it was over a week that this entire campaign took place, and the battle that they got, you know, what they're looking at is a 1 or 2 days active battle. Supply would never have been an issue, but supply is sort of central to the whole game structure, and it just doesn't make sense. And I think it just sort of, I've done these things, and you sort of think, hang on, what's happened here? Oh, all of a sudden my units are all sort of like not in supply, and I didn't think about that when I was looking at the counter. So I want everything to sort of look as it should on the screen, which is why I don't have that, and why I probably might even not do it, because I don't want to sort of suddenly start saying, oh, I can't move into that hex now, and not know why until a lot of sort of hitting your head against the wall, and then figuring out from the rules or some of the video playthroughs, etc. But I think it's fair enough to accept that stacking limits, it's not an obscure sort of rule element. I mean, to some extent, people sort of almost expect stacking limitations. But how to do it? I'm gonna basically, I think I'm going to do a maximum of five counters with a maximum of 40 attack strength. So either or, whichever is the lesser. I mean, you could have 39, but if you've got 5 units, then that would be the limit. Or you could have 5. You could have 4. You could have 5 of one, and it would only be 5 attack strength, but it would still be the units, because I think organisationally people need space, and that's what I'm doing here. You see, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to just move them in there, because I just don't think organisationally they would have that ability to sort of intermingle. So I'm keeping them separate, but I'm also going to end it there because I've got things I've got to do really soon. And obviously this could take hours playing this, but I hope that appeals. It's a fantastic map, and I'm pretty sure it'll be an interesting game, and you can sign up and you can play it and have lots of fun, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.